Hi folks, welcome back to Working with the Slider Components. In this video I'm going to talk about the full screen carousel. What we're going to learn is we're going to learn how to add and remove different slides. We're going to change the text, change the button, and change the background image. It's fairly straightforward once you get into the actual slider page. Here's an example of what we're going to be working on. Here's a sample site with a full screen slider. Basically it could be placed, could take up the entire head of the page. In this particular template, it takes up a good chunk here. And what it does is basically it's a block of code with a background image. It slides from left to right once you initiate the process. Move some text, little button if you want to link to a page. And that's really about it. Great for advertising. And we've just sort of used a blurry background image there for an example. Here is the finished result here. If we're using it for our golf site, we can talk about our champions. We can go to the next slide, talk about the Dave Campbell Memorial Cup here. We can click once again to go to the next slide, that sort of a thing. And there we go. And that's really what it does. We've created a nice sort of picture to go in the background and some text to go over top of it with a button that would actually link them to a specific page regarding the information that you're reading right here. Think of it as a great big banner ad if you want to think like that. So let's jump into our site. I'm going to talk about adding and removing slides to start with because it's sort of something maybe you want to do ahead of time when you plan it out. Let's go into our library and let's go into our sliders and our full screen carousel. Let's open up the full screen carousel page. There we go. And we'll just pop it into code view. As you can see, we've sort of grouped all the information in these comment tags called slide 1, slide 2, and slide 3. If you want to add a new slide, simply copy slide 3 or slide 2, go down below, just below the existing comment tag and paste. And just for reference, I would suggest you just change the number to slide 4 to keep things straight in your head. And that's all there is to adding a new slide. Of course, you'll have to change the background image. You'll have to change the heading and the paragraph text and link to a different page perhaps, and we're going to cover that right now. So let's talk about changing the background image. Okay, if we were to switch over to the design view, we could use the tools in the design window to do this. I'm going to recommend you don't. Just to keep things clear and simple. As you read through the page, it starts off with a background picture. Then there's the headline for the first slide, the paragraph text, and then this down here is actually for the button. And then we start off with the picture for the second slide, right? We have the text, the paragraph, and the button. Third slide, text, paragraph, button. And trust me, once you start working on it and changing the text, it'll make a lot more sense because you can actually preview the slide and it goes as it goes through and you go, oh yeah, that's the picture and that's the text. Okay. Now with that said, I'm going to suggest we actually go into the code view and just change the link to the images, to the background image right here. This is slide number 1. It's within the images folder, noted slide 1, 2, and 3. If you were simply to create a new image of the same size and rename it slide-01 JPEG, drop it in here to replace that image, you're done. But what about for the fourth one down here? We've added a new slide, but we haven't changed the background image, so maybe just call it number 4. Create an image called slide-04 JPEG and drop it in the folder. Same practice we've used in other video tutorials talking about replacing images. If you use the same naming sequence that came with the template, you just drop your new images in there and away you go. Now for this particular component, this is a bigger image. The image we've used is 1500 by 550 pixels. It's a big image. You'll want to create an image of the same size. You could use something lower, but it's going to be stretched out. The nice thing about this particular component is it does take whatever image you use and it stretches it out to be 100% of your browser. So if you have a little tiny wee image and you try and stretch it out in a great big browser, it's going to look pretty bad. So keeping it, we figured about 1500 by 500, it can get stretched out fairly large and still look pretty good. And that's one of the reasons why we've gone with this particular image size. It just encompasses most of the web browsers or desktop browsers out there anyways. It'll look great on your iPad because it'll be a lot smaller. Okay. But in this example, we've actually created in this 5 replacement images. I've called them full screen 1, 2, all the way up to full screen 5. All right, so as an example, let's just drag and drop these into the images folder. We're going to use these as our replacements. All right, And let's go and create slide number 5 just by copying and pasting. Okay, so starting at the top, see where it says slide 1 JPEG? I'm just going to sort of slowly double click until I can get the rename function. I'm going to copy and then I'm going to paste full screen run 1 right there. I could also, like I said, do this right through the design here, or right through the design window. Just double click in the image, hit browse, go to my images folder and select the image. It changes it right there. Then I double click and I get rid of the specify. But I've used that in most of the other tutorials when really it's just as fast to do the old rename. And you notice something here, and I did this on purpose. Full screen 3 JPEG is an uppercase JPG. But you see when I like to preach everything in lowercase, but if I do the double click and I copy and I go over here and I paste, you'll see that it's also an uppercase JPG. So because the file name matches exactly, it'll work out wonderfully on any server. All right? But I also see a lot of folks who have an uppercase JPG in the actual file name, and they type in a lowercase over here. Yeah, that's only going to work on a Windows server. It's not going to work on 85% of the other servers out there, which are Unix and Linux. So that's just a bit of something to share with you there. So we'll put that in place, and then we'll just keep going here. Full screen 4. Like I said, you don't need to know HTML. You just need to know how to copy and paste and where to put stuff once you do it. There we go. Source images full screen 5. So if I go to my design window and I scroll up and down, and they're all new pictures in there. Perfect. Now changing the captions and the title, the paragraph caption, and the button. See where it says sign up today? Yeah, that's actually a button. We've used CSS and the Bootstrap framework to take that text and apply it or create a button out of it. Changing this information is pretty straightforward. Select the text or put your cursor somewhere within the header. And I like to, when I do this stuff, I like to click in here. Then I go to my quick tag selector and I click the H1 tag. New heading goes here. And the reason I do that is because it ensures that it keeps the H1 tag when I've sort of selected it and then type. Same with the paragraph text down here. I click somewhere within here. See the P lead? I click the P lead and then this is my new text. I want to keep the P and the lead style on the text so it displays nicely within the actual component in the page. If I were just to grab this with my mouse and backspace it and new text goes here, there's a possibility that it wouldn't retain the paragraph and the class of lead when I do that. So in this example it did, but I've seen many cases where we sort of wipe something out, it wipes out the code in the back of the page and the styling as well. As for the button, just right click. I'm going to see if I can move this into view here. Just right click on the blue text, use the hyperlink properties, give it a new name, and link it to a page. Click here, and there you go. And that's all you need to do to change the images, change the text, change the button, and change the background picture for this particular item here. And in this example, really it's the button that links to the page, not the picture. We haven't set it up to do that. We've just set up or added or included a button there for you to link to the page. It's a call to action, so you can use that call to action to bring attention to whatever page you want your visitors to go to.